Okay. I'll call the Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting to order for Wednesday, September 7th, 2016. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from August 2nd. Does anyone have any comments? Hearing none. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Anyone second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye? Okay. Motion passed unanimously. I don't have any announcements. Does anyone else?
I have one, I guess, kind of announcement. The Planning Commission, I guess, is statutorily required to receive copies of the Select Board's decisions on reclassifying roads. And they've recently took action on, well, or no action, on three roads. The first is Wikipedia Hill Road. They have reclassified it to a Class 4 town highway, and they're planning on installing a gate at the intersection of Pleasant Valley Road and Wikipedia Hill Road. This decision kind of talks about the necessity of providing non-motorized access for the public to these areas. So there's going to be signage installed that it's open to the public, but it's gated so that non-motorized.
And where is that?
That is in the northwest corner of town, up near Pleasant Valley Reservoir, kind of in the corner with Dummerston. And then there is Bittersweet Lane. This was a subdivision off of
East Orchard?
Yes, East Orchard, thank you. There was a petition for the town to take that over as a Class 3 town road. The Select Board have declined at this time. They're going to keep it as private. They said if there's more development, I think then they'll reconsider it again. I think there's three houses up there now, I think. And then the final one is Minshall Street, which connects Canal Street to Bird Street. I think it's near Kresge's Auto.
It's a real obscure street.
Yeah, and then kind of loops around back. Their decision there was to discontinue it from Canal to Burr Street, but to leave a 10-foot right-of-way portion to be maintained as a public right-of-way, and it's been reclassified as a town trail. So I think that you can actually get from South Street down to Minshall. So they're preserving it as a trail, but it's been discontinued as a road. So you're welcome to look at these decisions, but we've just formally received them.
Okay, well, we do have a member of the public present, but I don't know if there's any comments.
Eli, do you have any comments? Eli? What now?
Very good.
He usually does, but.
Okay, yes. Good comments, I should say.
Yeah.
Dave Cohen is here with us to discuss VBike. Dave, would you like to begin?
Yeah, so, I think you invited.
Yes,
me to-
yeah, let me just, let me set this up for you. Rod had been talking with Dave about VBike a while ago, and so we invited Dave to present to the Planning Commission. I know there is a relationship with Rachel, but it did come at our request to come in and speak to the Planning Commission and hear about VBike and what his organization is doing.
Yeah.
I clipped a little bit about VBike and you, but you can tell us about it if you prefer.
Yeah, there's plenty in here to kind of do that. And so maybe what I'll do is you guys can ask questions while I'm doing this. It's kind of informal, so if any questions come up along the way, that's totally fine. But I guess one of the big things is that there's a lot of, whenever I show this, a lot of people think, oh, it might be all the pizza shops in New York City, but it's actually all the bike share stations in New York City now, sprinkled now in Queens and Brooklyn. Some 10,000 bikes, hundreds of stations. The bike share phenomenon is all over the country. In fact, since 2006, there's been some 50 multi-million-dollar projects. I mean, so something is going on along the lines of these bike share projects. Chicago, Nice Ride in Minneapolis, the Hubway in Boston. One of the big ones is, for some reason they got cut out here. One of the big ones is in DC. I don't know why it didn't show up in here. And you can see the middle one is one of the Hubway bikes. The car is no longer king. It was one of the slogans they put on the bicycles, which is kind of interesting. Worldwide, 600 since 2006. 600 substantial bike share projects. Partially it has to do with technology, being able to track these things, and a lot of wireless communication, but it has a lot to do with how the bike is becoming an indicator species for healthy communities. Where it's not present, then it's probably, as far as our health, our personal health, our well-being is compromised by not having pedestrians and certainly biking. And of course, here's a really basic primer on pedestrianism. 3 really simple steps. But we're here really to talk about biking, and there's a really interesting demographic that I'd really like to point out, that as far as the millennial generation, Generation Y, they're biking far more, driving far less. So it's 23% fewer miles driven. It's just like one of these demographics that's happening. I'm running into a lot of people this age that either they've gone down to maybe one car in their family, or they're just not buying a car at all, and they're walking more, they're taking public transit, and of course biking more, so the bike, while it, one thing I should point out too is that these people are moving to places where there is bike access. So any place, any town or city, if we really, want to remain economically viable and really, vital communities, what we're noticing is one of the reasons why all these bike share projects are happening is to attract a younger population. So a lot of cities are actually competing for those populations because they know that those Generation Y, they want to live in places where there's access to stuff. And so what happened to the bike, and why did the bike even have to make a comeback? That's a really complicated story. I can't go into the whole thing. I have a whole other presentation around that. But as most of us know, at some point, the bike became essentially a toy for kids. And that was after during late 1800s, there was a big bike boom in the United States. There were 300 manufacturers. The bike all of a sudden fell out around the time of the automobile coming into our consciousness and onto our streets. Then in the 1970s, 1980s in the United States, biking came back with new technological designs, new technologies, lighter weight materials, things that can climb over crazy hills, going downhill. Basically, the bike came back, but it came back mainly as a recreational toy, and some commuting, but it always brings up the question for me. So what is a bike? So whenever I'm talking to legislators, planners, they'll say, "Oh, we support biking." So I usually ask, so what do you think a bike is? And normally I get somebody riding on a bike and going to their office, or that's bike transportation. There's a lot more that's happening right now. One of the big things that's happening are cargo bikes. And you can just see right here in the Wall Street Journal, and many other magazines, newspapers, this whole thing about the cargo bike is generating a lot of interest. A lot of families that don't want to be transporting their kids around in cars every time they have to go somewhere or go to school, they're finding that there's this whole new range of bikes that are out there that can carry our kids and also do the shopping, laundry, whatever else we need to do. cargo bikes have been around for a long, long time. I have a whole slideshow about that, but I'm not going to show you all that. I'll just show you how it really kind of started in the U.S. Now, this might not look like anything, but do you know what this is, Eli?
It's an extra cycle.
Free radical.
Free radical.
Yeah, yeah.
And then attaches to the back of a mountain bike and makes the bike into a long tail.
Yeah, so what this does is it's just a frame that attaches onto, it could be a mountain bike, you also could do it with a road bike, and elongates the frame, makes it into a long tail cargo bike. And this was an idea that came in the early 90s, and I was actually experimenting with it a long time ago with a friend of mine who actually designed this in the first place. So the extra cycle free radical was this thing that just expanded what a bike can do. Within a few years, there are other companies that started making things like this, but fully integrated frames can carry kids. Yuba is really one of the big manufacturers, and really the other one is Extra Cycle. They've developed a fully integrated long-tail bike because when you have the full frame built like that, it's just more stable, a little bit more rigid. Then there's like tons of accessories that they've added onto this. So there are moms all over riding, especially in Portland and Seattle and Boulder. Of course, you know, San Francisco, but even Boston and New York City, this is really catching on really big. Pregnant moms. I'm always like, wow, pregnant moms riding that. The one that you see down below is made by a company called Madsen, or sometimes people call this the bucket bike. Dads too, of course. You know, I'm a dad, so, you know, this is what I'm often doing. So the other development that's really interesting, and I'll discuss a little bit about what the meaning of this is for just planning and conceptualizing what the future is going to look like for towns like Brattleboro. But the next development are fully integrated electric assist cargo bikes. These are things that can climb any hill around here. In fact, VBike has one of these bikes, the green one. It's called the Spicy Curry. You can see the electric assist motor is actually built right into the frame, and the frame has to be specially designed in order to accept that. And then this company, Extra Cycle, also, they're going head-to-head building very similar kinds of bikes. So you can just see that there's a lot of thought going into this. Bosch is making the electric assist for the Extra Cycle, and Bosch is, international. It's a German company, really good dishwashers. But this is all about, it's not just about, of course, the technology, it's also about like what a bike can do. And we're talking about really extending the range, hill climbing ease, carrying capacity, the comfort of riding. It really transforms the bike into something completely different. And so there are all kinds of electric assist bikes on the market now. If you go to the bike shops, you'll notice that they're actually carrying these things, and there's a reason why. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but there's all kinds of possibilities. You're going to have a motor on the front hub that you see on the upper right-hand side. You can see the green arrow. A rear hub motor where the motor is placed back there, and there's different locations also for batteries. There's something called mid-drive, which that's what you saw on the those two cargo bikes. They have mid-drive motors, and there's certain advantages of having a mid-drive motor. And you can also have all kinds of designs like, folding bikes with electric assist. There's all kinds of add-on kits. So the bikes you just saw were things that were like out-of-the-box electric assist bikes. But there are all kinds of add-on kits like the Bionics. You can add on to any bike. And some of them you literally can be put on a bike within 5 or 10 minutes. Wow. The Hilltoppers become very, very popular in Brattleboro. But I'll be showing you something else that's becoming even more popular and really encouraging watching it develop. These are called, again, conversion kits. The populations that could totally benefit from this, one of the things I like to think about are seniors. And electric assist allows seniors to all of a sudden get on their bikes and enjoy their town, their city, in a way that they previously weren't able to.
Is that a trike in the lower right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're trying to help the bike shops to develop the capacity for these kinds of designs that are, adaptable for seniors. Yeah, so trikes with electric assist or step-through frames. You notice that this bike, you see that yellow arrow, really easy to get on and off that bike. You don't have to put your leg over a high top tube. So this is just one of the areas that we're really investigating and encouraging the bike shops to move in.
Cool.
And here's a design that actually I'm working with a family that's interested in something called the Liberty Trike. It can only go about 11 miles an hour, but it's narrow enough to actually go right into a store. It can go in reverse and turn right in place. It has a swivel seat, so you get on it, you can just easily just get onto the trike without lifting your leg very, very high at all. And there's all kinds of, and the Liberty Trike is just an example of companies that are coming together, these collaborations that are really interesting, where two companies are coming together to develop something unique. Liberty Trike is Worksman Cycles, which is the oldest bike manufacturing company in the United States, based in New York City, and an electric bike company. They came together to develop this idea of the Liberty Trike. And these other models here too are collaborations. This folding bike over here is an extra cycle and also a folding bike company working together. The upper kind of end of the sphere of this whole thing is something called the ELF. And it's made by a company called Organic Transit. I've been following these things for years, so I can just let you know that there's not something freakish or a one-off prototype or anything like that. These are production vehicles. It's kind of a statement that in Vermont we only have one ELF. I mean, we've got a lot of ferries. What?
Is it yours?
No. Somebody just bought one, actually. Joe Matson, he's up in the Burlington area. He bought one used. One ELF in all of Vermont. It has a lot of things. You just look at it, right off the bat. What do you guys notice about it?
Storage, it's
Yeah.
covered.
It's covered, it's got storage, actually optional doors you can put on it. One thing you can't really see is it has a solar panel integrated right into it. You can just leave this thing out. And it will recharge. It's pedal powered. It has full headlights, directionals, rear view mirrors, the whole deal. Enough room and capacity for carrying your children around. It's just a whole transportation revolution. And, I'll come to, so, this is like what I consider hybrid technology. Any electric assist is a hybrid between human power and supplementary electric assist. So we're talking really about the ultimate hybrid in terms of efficiency.
If you drove something like the ELF, like that qualifies as a bike, right? But where do you drive on the road? Like, where does that belong?
Oh, that's the beauty of it. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions. Yeah. We can probably think of like what might happen. There will be some controversy for sure, and that's already been seen in many places where ELFs are becoming popular. You can't fit them totally into the side of the road, so there are times when you have to take over the road, and it can go approximately 20 miles an hour. So you can almost go the speed of traffic, but it's a beautiful natural traffic calming device. Yeah, and it brings up a lot of questions, starts a conversation that I don't think we've had very much, at least in this neck of the woods here. So one of the things we're thinking about, electric car is going to solve all our problems. I'm just showing you the battery bank for an electric car, and you can see that the size of it compared to the battery requirements for an electric bike. There's no comparison as far as resource demands and energy requirements. Of course, between a SUV and even a large cargo bike, you could make approximately 100 of these cargo bikes out of just one SUV. And this is just something I was exploring at one point when the Comprehensive Energy Plan came out, and actually we're beyond the draft, it's been accepted. And there's this whole thing about the profile of our energy profile and the kinds of energy that we use for transportation. You notice all the different forms of energy, but what's left out is us. we're completely left out. The 600,000 some odd people in Vermont are not represented in this energy plan. Our human bodies are actually missing. And so in this slide, I was actually using this for an energy meeting, but I like this. This concept that, like, wait a second, even in our energy plan, we're completely written out. It's as if the human body doesn't exist and it's not a form of energy that's renewable or something that we need to maximize in its use. And so the consequences of that have been horrible. The consequences of writing us out of, whether it's our streets, writing us out of our energy plans, I think have been horrendous. And the physiological, and also, I happen to be a therapist, so I really focus on mental health. Anxiety and depression, lack of exercise, lack of connection to the outdoors is a huge factor in a lot of health-related issues in the United States. Just one little fact I always like to mention, that Americans gained 25 pounds between 1960 and 2002. Well, that obesity costs us 1 billion gallons of gasoline just to move the extra 25 pounds around. And that's enough fuel to power 1.7 million cars for an entire year.
Wow.
Yeah. And so one thing that we do at VBike, I'm going to go through this part quickly so I can just show you what's happening in town, because I don't know how much you guys know about how the bike shops are shifting, what's going on with bikes, and how this is going to look, next year and the year after. So I don't really want to get to that. But really quickly, we also investigate the neuropsychology of transportation, particularly looking at the automobile, kind of decoding it and looking at how it affects our worldview, our bodies, and so forth. And I'm not going to go into all this, but we do investigate how it creates that barrier between us and the natural world, between us and the social world, as part of the architecture of the automobile. And usually I never get anybody that argues that. They go, yeah, that's part of it. The other part of it is that it also dissociates us from our very impact on the world. We don't know. How do you know how it feels to be outside of your car when you're driving? Because the automobile has a sensory barrier where our senses operate very weakly outside of the automobile. We can operate, maybe we can talk and carry a conversation, in the car, or listen to the stereo, but our capacity to know what's going on exterior to the car, it's impossible. And that's part of the kind of the comfort of the automobile. And kind of break down the word automobile anyway. I mean, it just means, automatic mobility, which implies a lot of different things about our senses, our connection to our body, and also our emotional engagement to the world outside of the car. Believe it or not, this is an ad from Ford in Canada. And so we use this just to kind of show, like, it's really hard for us, some of us to even conceptualize, what we're talking about here, because the automobile has so kind of gotten into us and inspired our worldview in particular ways. It's hard for us to really understand the full kind of impact of it on our worldview. And so that comes to, like, well, we're going to solve this problem. Of course, we're going to reinvent the car, right? We're going to do the electric car. At least in the work that we do, we really look at this as the everything stays the same approach, because you're going to have the same issues of planning and infrastructure, sprawl, and all these different things that we know that are associated with the automobile. We're still going to be replacing our, the use of our bodies, replacing our soundscapes. The pollution's going to be somewhere else. And we're still subverting, our ecological entombment and so forth. The number one problem, I think, with electric cars is that, I'm not opposed to electric cars. It's just that the number one problem is thinking that we're going to solve a problem through them. And so this is actually an ancient dream. It goes way back to, like, if you read Muhammad on, the horse and traveling to Jerusalem, or Jesus walking on water, the Pharaoh and the sun god and the pyramids going to project them out into the great cosmos. This idea of automobility has been with us for a long, long time. The dream of flying and all that. But with the car, what the end game really that's coming is not really electric cars, but actually self-driving cars, or what's known as car bots. So our answer to this is actually including people more in the city streets, our bodies, our senses, our very kind of social nature, bringing us back as the lifeblood of the community rather than confining individuals and families, seniors in this technology known as the automobile. So VBike has an extensive website with lots of resources. We're also really well integrated with Go Vermont, which is part of VTrans. Go Vermont is our state alternative transportation agency, and we have a contract with them to provide consultations for bike shops and also Vermonters on how to get on with this new kind of range of designs and technologies that can really completely transform the bike and our use of it. And so we provide these consultations, sometimes right at people's homes, over the phone, and or through email. And I'm constantly doing that. I did one today. I had somebody down at the bike shop. I was helping her to purchase her cargo bike for her family. We also got Vermont's very first low-interest loans for bikes through the Vermont State Employees Credit Union. They extended their V-Green loans now to bikes. There's a lot more along those lines that we want to start working on in terms of making us financially viable for as many families as possible. Be able to get their senior trike, their elf, their cargo bike, or their commuter bike. The other thing that we have is we have a whole fleet of bikes. We have a demonstration fleet that consists of what's known as a Yuba Mundo bike, and we've outfitted that with electric assist. We also have, as I mentioned, the spicy curry. Here's the kind of picture of the fleet. We have a great host of sponsors, companies that have sponsored our fleet. Now, the primary purpose of the fleet is to lend them out. We also bring them for all kinds of demonstrations around the state, but we lend them out to folks in Brattleboro right now. We have a project called Take It Home. And this is Josh Davis. You notice one thing about these bikes, they can actually tow another bike. So he rode his bike to pick this one up, and then he was towing his bike back home, along with this electric assist cargo bike that he was going to use for taking his kids to school. So parents get to try out these bikes, and I'd say about 80 to 85% of people convert over to buying a bike in one of the shops here. So we've really increased the number of sales at the bike shops. We also have a standard kind of mountain bike that we've converted. We're going to have more things like that. We really want to have adaptive designs and technologies for seniors. So we're going to be acquiring a few things like that in the coming months. So that Liberty Trike and a few other vehicles like that. So the Take It Home project, we like to put a little asterisk next to it. Take it home, but bring it back. So people get a chance to take one home for 3-4 days, sometimes a week. A lot of these people have converted over to now being cargo bike riders of all sorts and varieties, carrying their children around, going on daily errands. These are just some of the folks, about 17 cargo bikes in town. Next year we're hoping to actually double, maybe triple that. Then there's the whole stealthy thing going on. Many of you might not even be aware of. These small electric assist units that are on people's bikes, very hard to detect, but certainly people that are riding them know about it because they're climbing the hills. And so there's all sorts of folks, John Ungerleider, Lisa who opened 118 Elliott.
That's the one.
Yeah. George Harvey, who's like, the energy dude of, of this area. Marilyn Chiarello, who started the whole urban farming thing near the co-op. And Norm Skorstad is a therapist. He carries his dog around in his trailer. And Joe has a folding bike. There's got to be at least 50 or 60 electric bikes up from just a handful just 3 years ago. And so part of the work of VBike is also working with the shops. And I'll just explain a little bit about that really quickly. We just were on VPR the other week and had a really nice piece in the Reformer. We've been getting a lot of press, about what we call rebooting the bike. So part of our work is really making the bike shops really relevant. And I'm going to update the slideshow because now I can start showing you all the stuff that's in the Brattleboro bike shops. And both bike shops are being converted into what we call green transportation centers, not bike toy shops, because most bike shops sell bikes as toys. The toyification of the bike, I think, has been awful in the United States. If you ever travel to Europe, particularly Holland, Germany, Denmark, you know that the bike is seen in a completely different light. So helping the bikes to become more relevant, and that means the adaptive technologies for seniors, bikes for commuters, people who commute 15 miles and go up the hills and still get to work and feel like they can bike back when it's time to bike back, and certainly things for families, the cargo bikes and all that. This is just an idea of what our shops are going to eventually look like. This is just a shop in Berkeley, but this is Berkeley, California. These kinds of shops are all over the United States now. They're sprouting up all over the place. Vermont has just been way behind the curve, and it's time for us to catch up because this is, I think, going to really shift the way that we think about living in our towns and cities. And again, our fundamental principles are really about engaging our bodies, staying socially connected and ecologically attuned, really being aware of our impact on the world. And really, when you drive a car, it doesn't really add that much, even if it's an electric car. You're not really adding conviviality and a sense of community. When you're walking or biking, it really does add back to the community. And so, finally, my final thoughts on this is like the implications for this, for our town, as this movement, develops. And I have to say that Brattleboro is really ground zero for this. We're not like trying to spread our energy all over Vermont at this point, even though the contract we have for consultations is statewide through Go Vermont. But Brattleboro is kind of like our test case. How much can we get these bike shops online? How many people can we get converting over to a car-light lifestyle? This past few months have been stellar. I mean, it's really shifting into a whole nother level. So I just kind of wanted to prepare you guys for that because next year, next spring and summer, it's going to be, I think, hopping at a whole nother level. And so this is really about kind of repopulating our city streets with and town streets with the human presence. My own little nerdy attempt to kind of repopulate the streets. But also really knowing that if we want to make Brattleboro even more economically viable and attract our younger population, car-light lifestyle is what Generation Y is moving to. And if we don't follow that, we're just not going to have the kind of vitality this community really could have. And bikes, again, just reviewing, is an indicator species for healthy communities, attracting younger families. The whole electric assist thing being the ultimate hybrid. We talk about hybrid vehicles, but there's nothing like using your body and being assisted by the electric assist system. And what it comes down to, especially for planning, is this is an amazing tool for local living. People actually shopping and living more locally, so it has a lot to do with a vital local economy as well. And it has to do with us showing up in a time of climate change in a way that, the only way I can say is if we need to at this point. So that's it. That's kind of the VBike story. There's a lot more, but if you have any questions, yeah.
That was very nice, and I appreciate you coming.
Sure.
I just have one question. I really don't understand what VBike is. Are you helping you have a contract with V-Trans,
Yeah,
and you're a
so we're a
You're a
nonprofit.
nonprofit,
Yeah,
and you consult
advocacy
with,
group.
and you consult with people. Do people get discounts from the state for buying these
Oh,
bikes?
so those are the kinds of things that we're looking at. We would love to get complete sales tax relief on buying a bike for transportation. The only thing we have right now is the low interest loans. But we'd like to see a whole range of programs. One of the things we're really keen on is developing a pot of money that would be for low-income families to be able to purchase one of these. Because it shouldn't be just in the hands of, families that are well off or can actually get a loan. The tax credits, so we're looking at a whole range of possibilities, yeah.
Thank you.
So again, we're a nonprofit that is updating the bike in Vermont, working with the shops and certainly with, Vermonters, but also with legislators, planners, and, okay, we've got to bring the bike up to a new level, yeah.
Do you think the climate here in Vermont has prevented it from catching on as quickly as in, say, San Francisco?
A lot of people ask me about that, about winter. I usually don't talk about winter primarily because we're such a rudimentary bike culture here. And when people talk winter, it's like, go to Minneapolis. Go there and watch the thousands of people that ride year-round. Go there and last February, they had the Second International Congress on Winter Cycling, and sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's like a total health initiative. So I think it's totally possible.
Cool.
When you saw that slide of that Ford automobile, the van, all we're tucked into it. I think that the automobile has somewhat limited our capacity to understand what we're capable of doing. And I think we're capable of doing a lot more. And it's not like everybody's going to ride. We're not talking about the end of cars. We're talking about just more people engaged with their bodies and senses. Yeah.
Can I ask, do you have, or have you had a chance to meet with some of the V-Trans policymakers? I mean, because, I think V-Trans often looks at ourselves as a very rural state. And so,
Yeah.
they might
code
be
word.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, there might be the infrastructure in a downtown or, on the edges, but the further out you get, it seems like
Yeah.
it might.
They definitely know about this. Especially through Ross McDonald at Go Vermont. He's a program director. So we've approached a lot of people at V-Trans. And what we're working on right now is just proving and providing proof that this actually does work. And it's really one of these things what I really like. We don't even have to ask anybody's permission. It's not like we have to go and ask permission from the select board. We're just shifting what the bike can do. And then we're going to look at what happens after that. Our kind of motto is, or slogan, I don't know what we call it, is that change the bike, the infrastructure will follow. Because as we develop the critical mass, which is already developing right now, and I think you'll start hearing a lot more about that next year, that's what creates the change that we need. Yeah. Because a lot of people have come to me and said, well, we need more bike infrastructure, we can only do this if we have more bike infrastructure. Well, yeah, just 5 of us saying that, or, without any real depth of critical mass it's not going to get anywhere. So we see that actually shifting the technology and design and bringing new ideas is already starting to develop into that critical mass that's going to create change. So that's the story.
Great, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alrighty. So you want to tell us about section 248, Public Service Board applications?
Yes. So we received notice of 2 applications before the Public Service Board. The first one is for a smaller scale net meter. Net metering means it's going to connect onto the power grid. Solar array up at the World Learning Campus. This is, we get a 30-day notice. If at the end of 30 days we don't raise any, issues, they're going to go through their procedure and they might get their certificate of public good. So this is kind of going through quickly process. It's a ground-mounted photovoltaic installation. It's, as mentioned, it's going to be net metered. It's located within the campus off of Dickinson Road, and there's going to be about 720 modules with an equipment pad. I think they're planning on using some fencing as well. In terms of compliance with conformance with our town plan, it's not in an area that has any identified natural assets. It's not in any area determined to have critical wildlife suitability. There's no streams, wetlands.
Say bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dave.
Dave.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.
No natural heritage, and it's 250 feet from the nearest residence, so staff doesn't find that there's anything here to go, hey, hold up, you know.
Just peek at the map. I looked at it
You
on my
can.
phone, and I couldn't really
Yeah.
see the map too honestly.
What's the group that applied?
Thank you.
SIT.
Okay.
Yeah,
So is this the road here?
so, yeah, no,
it come like
it's
that.
awful maps. So this is Dickinson Road,
Okay.
and this is Kipling out
That's,
here. I
oh,
think.
that's Kipling Road, okay.
That one's Kipling.
Okay.
And so this is the
the
International,
campus.
Lowy
What's this?
International
This is-
Center. That's, I think that's the nearest residence. Or that might be a campus building.
So it's not-
Part of that campus is on the National Register. This is outside of the National
And it's
Register.
not visible at all, then it looks like from.
Yeah, there's this little
Kipling
paragraph
Road,
on
right?
aesthetic impact
Yeah.
that I found
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. What is Dickinson
And I think
Road?
this
Is that
map
just
is-
the
It's
campus?
within the campus.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
map, I think, is more helpful figuring out where it is on the campus. Did you want to see?
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So, yeah, it doesn't have
Okay,
Kipling.
yeah, it
Kipling's
is.
in here though, but.
There's the little road running that way.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't Kipling. We were looking, I think, at Black Mountain then. Yeah, so.
I can picture where it is.
Do you have anything that you might be concerned about that, I mean, if we,
I didn't read it.
if we don't have any concerns, we'll probably just send a memo to the select board saying that the planning commission reviewed it. We don't find any conflicts with the town plan and what,
Is that your recommendation?
that would be our recommendation, yes.
Does anyone have any opinions that might differ with that recommendation?
You don't?
Do we need to make a motion, or are you good to go?
I think we're okay.
Okay.
I don't think we need a motion.
Next.
So the second application that we received is for a 5 megawatt solar array at the capped landfill on the Windham Solid Waste Management District property. This is off Old Ferry Road, on the northern end of town off of Putney Road. The landfill was capped in 1995-96. It's a landfill, so there's not much that's going to go on there. The state, in the last couple of years, they passed some legislation that actually would allow a pilot project, either a solar facility, a group of solar facilities, on a closed landfill in Windham County. I mean, it was pretty specific. It must have been in response to VY, I'm thinking. And the certificate for public good would need to be filed by January 1st of 2017 in order to take advantage of this pilot program. So this is a bigger application. We are getting 45 days notice that at the end of that 45 days, they are going to be filing a complete application. It's going to occupy 17 acres on the landfill. This is an industrial zoned area. It is in between 91 and the river, it doesn't appear to be visible. Their aesthetic report is not finalized. That will come with a full application, which we will probably get a copy of that as well. Similar to the other one, there's no historic or natural resources in this area. Staff thinks it's a good use to the landfill, rather than taking up green.
Absolutely.
You know.
Was there a map with that one too? And I just peek at it.
It's
I think
similarly.
there was, and yeah, I similarly couldn't. I couldn't
Similarly,
see
you
on my
can't make
phone.
much sense of it, even in the printed out version.
So where am
So-
I? Is this the river?
The river's over here.
Okay.
This is the recycling kind of area, the
Okay.
resource recovery, the pole barn, and so this is
Off
kind
the,
of where probably the transfer station
Off
kind of thing.
Depot or Station Road or
Um,
whatever it
Old
is.
Ferry.
Yeah, Ferry Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's all in the back there. Not on the steep slopes because it is
So,
kind of edgy.
so did you say you can see it, this
Um,
location from the river?
We don't know if it's visible from the river. The river's New Hampshire, so I'm not sure how that'll be viewed in their certificate of public
There are
good.
not many Vermont viewers who would be impacted by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to see? Can't really see much.
It sounds good to me.
Okay.
Really a good use of that.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, are these topographical lines? It looks like it's
Yes.
extremely steep.
Yes, I
there.
think
Yes,
they're
it
not
is.
putting them there.
Ah.
These kind of rectangles are where the proposed installation will be. All right, so is everybody good with that? And we'll just
Yep.
send our,
Yes,
let
please
the
do.
select board know we did our job and there's nothing
Mhm.
here to be concerned with. Okay. Excellent.
So next is Act 174.
Do you want me to talk to it or do you want to?
You start. I have some comments.
Okay. So Act 174 is some energy planning legislation, and it basically seeks to integrate energy and land use planning, and it creates an option by where a town can do enhanced energy planning. And if we do that and we are found to be in conformance with the regional plan, which is found to be in accordance with the state energy plan, then we will get kind of preferential, they'll give a greater weight to what we say in our town plan about siting of energy facilities within Brattleboro. So we've talked
So
about
that in the reverse, if there was a project in Brattleboro that we didn't like for some valid planning reasons, and if our plan backed us up, we would have better standing with the Public Service Commission than if we didn't.
Yeah. I think Rod has talked in the past about how they don't give a lot of deference to towns. So this would be an option, one way that we could have more weight given to our town plan. Currently, the Public Service Department is, they're seeking comments. They're trying to come up with what it would look like for a town to be compliant or energy compliant with the regional planning commissions or with the state energy policies. There was a forum last week that we did not attend, but the way that the schedule is that they're taking comments now. I think they actually closed on Monday, and then they're going to release draft standards in sometime this month. They're going to have more public comment with maybe 2 public meetings throughout the great state of Vermont. And then they're going to finalize in November and publish the rule. So it's all moving along very fast.
I remember when I first saw the Energy Master Plan, I thought that it was ridiculously optimistic. And I think it's going to be difficult for that timetable and those projections to be brought down to each town and region. And I went to the Windham Regional Commission meeting last week where they got money from the state to develop a regional plan for energy. And I think we need to keep very careful attention to this because that regional plan is going to identify sites where specific energy-related land uses should be cited. And so they will be speaking for us and in terms of land use and energy. And if we're not comfortable with what they say, we'll have to live with it because they'll be the ones with the increased standing for the Public Service Board on where they cite where they choose to site energy in the Brattleboro area. And I think we should probably also amend our master plan to have our own ideas of where energy should be sited. Not only so that they're consistent, state, regional, and town, but if we have our own aesthetic issues or our own land use issues.
Yeah, and from the survey questions that I saw, you know, while becoming energy compliant would give us greater weight in these hearings, I mean, they're really talking across the, you know, all sectors of energy planning. So it's transportation, it's heating, it's energy efficiency, and in addition to renewables and siting of renewables. So the standards could be, you know, they're trying to figure it out right now. They could be goal-oriented or they could be pretty prescriptive. And so that's kind of where they're looking for feedback. One of the areas they're looking for feedback right now.
We've already had a case where, you know, our planning staff, and I think the commission as well, thought that the solar siting was not a good use of a particular piece of property. But, you know, the Public Service Board was so pro-solar that we had no say. And I think this is a way for us to put our thoughts together and have some say.
I'm hoping by our October meeting, we're going to see what those standards are so we can make some formal comments. Chris Campany, the executive director of the Windham Regional Commission, did go to that forum last week, and he said it was, you know, a wide range of opinions. That's pretty much what was collected at that meeting. Not so much that they came and said, this is the direction we're going at. So
Definitely food for thought.
yeah, it's fast
I think,
moving.
Yeah, if we're smart, we need to.
Yeah, I think some of
watch
the
for
areas
this.
so we're going to want to be paying attention to, is it goal-oriented or prescriptive? What's the process to become energy compliant, and how does it comport with other plans that we might have? Because, you know,
And if you're
getting
not
the town
energy
plan
compliant.
passed, you know, the more specific that you need to be with the town plan, the more difficult it is to have it passed. It's, you know, with the exception of Vermont, most town plans or municipal plans or comprehensive plans, whatever you want to call them, are more visionary. And Vermont over the years has really tightened it up, and it's almost becoming the regulatory tool. And
Vermont and New Jersey.
New Jersey too. That's interesting. So there's a tension there between making it, you know, a document that can get approved. So yeah, it's interesting.
Anybody else have any thoughts on the matter?
Nope.
Alrighty. Well, I think we've tackled our agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Would anyone like to second?
Second it.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.